We are here for the fourth episode, I believe, in the Daily Laws, a series on the channel that is going hand in hand with The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday, The Daily Laws, of course, by Robert Greene. There are 3 days in total here that I want to talk about because I think they all more or less sort of run together here. The first one is this January 20th. See mastery as salvation. We get a quote here from Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. The misery that oppresses you lies not in your profession, but in yourself. What man in the world would not find his situation intolerable if he chooses a craft, an art, indeed any form of life, without experiencing an inner calling? And we get this from Robert Greene. The world is teeming with problems, many of them our own creation. Pardon me. To solve them will require a tremendous amount of effort and creativity. Relying on genetics, technology, magic, or being nice and natural will not save us. We require the energy not only to address practical matters, but also to forge new institutions and orders that fit our changed circumstances. We must create our own world, or we will die from inaction. We need to find our way back to the concept of mastery that defined us as a species so many millions of years ago. This is not mastery for the purpose of dominating nature or other people, but for determining our fate. The passive, ironic attitude is not cool or romantic, but pathetic and destructive. You are setting an example of what can be achieved as a master in the modern world. You are contributing to the most important cause of all, the survival and prosperity of the human race in a time of stagnation. And you must convince yourself of the following. People get the mind and quality of brain they deserve through their actions in life. And I think there's a couple things worth talking about here. The daily law that follows this: you must see your attempt at maintaining mastery as something extremely necessary and positive. Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot. He talks about if you're going to be a plumber, for example, just as example, be a good plumber. Otherwise, all you're doing is walking around and spreading chaos. Part of the reason I think that the world is where it is, and look, it's easy to say the world is where it is, the world has gone downhill. How much of that is true, it's hard to say. But there's always areas where the world could be better. Part of the reason those areas are as they are is because of the too cool for school types. It is hard to be good at something. It is hard to build. It is easy to destroy. It is easy to doubt. There are too many cynics in the world, I would say, and it's hard to be good at something and prove. It's harder to be good at something than to prove that no one is, right? The haters, if you will. That part is easy. That part is always out there. That part, you can learn that part on a weekend, right? But to be good at something, or even just to try at something, is very difficult. To face failure is very difficult. Mastery only happens through hours of failing, and this is what we get from the people who become masters, is that they tell us these things, not me. There's nothing there from me, just things that I am passing along that I have heard along the way. January 22nd. Use resistance and negative spurs. We talk about haters. We talk about all of these things. We talk about how it's easier to tear down than it is to build up, but there's always someone there waiting to tear down. And that it's strange that way, isn't it? There's always someone there waiting to tear down. We get the quote here from 50 Cent, very good friends with Robert Greene. By the way, The 50th Law is an extremely compelling book if you have not read that one. Every negative is a positive. The bad things that happen to me, I somehow make them good. We get that from 50 Cent. The entry from Robert Greene here. The key to success in any field is first developing skills in various areas, which you can later combine in unique and creative ways. But the process of doing so can be tedious and painful as you become aware of your limitations and relative lack of skill. Most people consciously or unconsciously seek to avoid tedium, pain, and any form of adversity. They try to put themselves in places where they will face less criticism and minimize their chances of failure. You must choose to move in the opposite direction. You want to embrace negative experiences, limitations, and even pain as the perfect means of building up your skill levels and sharpening your senses of purpose. The Daily Law. Embrace negative experiences. When was the last time you failed, felt embarrassed, got criticized? What were you doing? What did the experience teach you? I think that sometimes these things go very hand in hand. The act of seeing mastery as salvation and the act of not being able, or not being afraid, pardon me, to fail. How would you ever master something or even improve at something without failing along the way? These things mean starting at the absolute bottom as often as possible. And sometimes in Stoic fashion, if we are allowed to cross reference these two series here on the channel. Sometimes in Stoic fashion, it means accepting a hardship for the sake of hardship. If you accept hardship for the sake of hardship, you will be fairly immediately humbled. You will fail. Accepting hardship for the sake of hardship without reward, accepting hardship for the sake of hardship without promise of getting better, without promise of your life being impacted by that hardship, going a day without eating, right? Deciding one day, I'm going to walk 30 miles this month after not walking at all, right? Going from inactivity to a mile every day, that is a hardship. And you're not really going to get all that much result out of a mile a day. So for me, probably this would be music or math. Accepting the hardship in the face of music or math would instantly humble me simply from trying to catch up with eighth grade numbers, right? So the real the real benefit to accepting these hardships and trying to learn things in that way is they remind us of things where we do want to improve. I've gotten to be nearly 40 without having to know all that much about eighth grade math. But humbling myself and learning these things forces me to focus on the smaller parts of a craft, the craft of mathematics. This reminds me I want to be a writer. Writing is what I want to do with my life. What I want to make in the world is literature. Accepting these things and trying to learn a craft like music or math reminds me that, yeah, every bit of me wants to insert hauntology into my short stories, wants to put nihilism at the conclusion of every paragraph. Every part of me wants to make short stories and novels and poems that insert existential dread to my reader. Every part of me wants to operate on that level. The up, 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 up level, the upper floors of writing. All of the philosophy that can be infused in there, all of the quandary, the questions that can be infused into literature. But when I take that step back and I force myself to learn something anew, it reminds me that in writing, yeah, you can put all the hauntology and nihilism and existential dread into your works that you want, but you have to get there with good sentences. If you don't use good sentences to get there, no one cares. No one cares. That is the type of humility that that is worth learning. I think that is the type of humility that can not be um, assumed. That is the type of humility that has to be learned. That is the type of humility that you pick up while going along with other, trying to learn other things. On the kissing page to this, January 23rd, create a ladder of descending goals. I think all of these days go hand in hand. Operating with long-term goals will bring you tremendous clarity and resolve. These goals, a project or business to come, for instance, can be relatively ambitious, enough to bring out the best in you. The problem, however, is that they will also tend to generate anxiety as you look at all you have to do to reach them from the present vantage point. To manage such anxiety, you must create a ladder of smaller goals along the way, reaching down to the present. Such objectives are simpler and further down the ladder you are simpler the further down the ladder you go, and you can realize them in relatively short time frames, giving you moments of satisfaction and a sense of progress. Always break tasks into smaller bites. Each day or week, you must have micro goals. This will help you focus and avoid entanglements or detours that will waste your energy. At the same time, you want to continually remind yourself of the larger goal to avoid losing track of it or getting too mired in details. Periodically return to your original vision and imagine the immense satisfaction you will have when it comes to fruition. This will give you clarity and inspire you forward. You will also want a degree of flexibility built into the process. At certain moments, you reassess your progress and adjust the various goals as necessary, constantly learning from experience and adapting and improving your original objective. And we have the daily law here. Remember that what you are after is a series of practical results and accomplishments, not a list of unrealized dreams and aborted projects. Working with smaller embedded goals will keep you moving in such a direction. There is an old saying, I believe it is from Daniel Burham: make no little plans, they have no magic to stir men's blood. And there is a possibly apocryphal quote, often attributed to Les Miles, but also attributed to no fewer than probably 10 people. Aim for the moon. Even if you miss, you'll be among the stars. Now, one of Robert Greene set this up beautifully. Robert Greene said everything that he needed to say, but I think that there is one small element here that is, I won't say abandoned, neither will I say neglected. There is one small goal here, or one small idea here, which may simply be nearly invisible to someone as accomplished as Robert Greene. If you set these goals that have the magic to stir men's blood, for example, for myself, one of the goals that I have, the big goals, is to revolutionize literature. Now, if you are breaking revolutionized literature into smaller goals, one of the things you have to do is publish radical short stories or poems or novels, etc. You have to publish these things in order to get to the point where you are revolutionizing literature. But we have here in this series of days Robert Greene saying that, look, not everybody is going to be the big bad. Sometimes you have to be the guy who is passionate about the work that he does. Sometimes we have on the 22nd the negativity brought up, before here on the 23rd talking about breaking big goals down into smaller things. If you set these goals that have the power to stir the blood of men, you set these goals like, I want to revolutionize literature, and you break that big goal down, as Robert Greene tells us here, into smaller goals. One of the goals that makes sense here is to write radical short stories. If you never, however, meet the big goal, I get to the point where I not revolutionize literature, that didn't happen, but I have this series of short stories that are pretty radical that were published all along the way. Well, that becomes something to hang your hat on. You did the work to get to mastery, but maybe you never reached the big goal. The big idea is mastery. You got there. Maybe you didn't get all the way to your revolutionary goal. That's nothing to be ashamed of as long as you did the parts, the constituent parts along the way. And I don't say this to be selfish in my series. There is something here for you as well. Maybe, for example, if your goal is to lose a whole lot of weight, what you're going to have to do is set small goals along the way. But setting these small goals along the way, eventually the muscle that you're building while you are losing fat will stabilize your weight. And you may never get to the big goal weight that you had. You wanted to get back down to 180, whatever the goal would be. Maybe you never get to 180, but along the way you picked up a whole lot of muscle. Well, you missed the big goal, the goal that had the magic to stir your blood. You missed that goal, but you hit a whole lot of other goals along the way. And it turns out that you were twice as healthy as ever you would have been had you not started your journey. This is one of the reasons that I'm such a proponent of setting goals. Is one of the reasons I'm such a proponent of setting audacious amounts of goals. I believe in setting ridiculous numbers of goals, if for no other reason than it makes you think about what it is that you want in life. I had an ethics professor when I was in college, community college, and he said that buying a lottery ticket is actually one of the best investments you can ever make. You're not going to win. You've thrown away $1, but it was only $1. And along the way, you did all the math, didn't you? It was $1 billion payout. So, what do you get? 600 million of that? Probably. Okay, well, 600 million. Well, there's 5 people in my family. I want to give them all 50. I want to give them all 25. $10 million is plenty for them. So now I'm down 50 million. I still have 550 million. I think I'd like to buy the state of Montana. So now I'm down to what? 512 million? I think I'd like to get rid of the bears to be able to live in Montana. Now I'm probably down to 500 million, right? All of these things along the way. You get a math lesson from buying a lottery ticket. You learn how much you really value your family when you buy a lottery ticket. You start doing all of these things that tell you about yourself and life when you buy a lottery ticket. Setting goals, I think, is the very same process. It tells you about yourself, where you're at, what you want, and how you value the things around you. That is all I have for this, I believe the fourth in about a 52-ish part series, journeying week by week through the daily laws by Robert Greene. If you like or appreciate what I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other people. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around for more. This series is in conjunction with the Daily Stoic here on the channel.